Welcome into College Football Smothered and Covered. My name is Barrett Sallee. Appreciate you checking out the show. Reminder to follow on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a great week. Why not have a weekend feast? Here's the best of the best from this week's College Football Smothered and Covered. All right, check this out. Kalen DeBoer absolutely getting paid by the Crimson Tide. For those who didn't see it yesterday, it broke about 4 o'clock in the afternoon or so. I was going to do a breaking news show about this. I was going to do an emergency podcast about this, but the 8U Battle Biscuits, my daughter's softball team, had team pictures, and family life takes precedent. But look at this. Kalen DeBoer, $10 million in 2024. And that contract will increase to 11.75 in the 8th year of that deal. I know Twitter and X are not real life, but Twitter and X blew up. He's overpaid. What does he deserve? He hasn't even coached a game at Alabama. DeBoer, the whatever. You make your jokes, about what he is. Look, we said last week, I liked the hire from the get-go. He's a winner, a proven winner. That's the most important thing. And we've seen through his recruiting efforts that, yeah, he is willing to get down and dirty in the recruiting world of the SEC. He's been successful in that department. So there's nothing to be discouraged about if you're Greg Byrne. If you're Greg Byrne, the athletic director of the University of Alabama, you're already pumped about what Kalen has done for your program. He's a winner and he's recruiting well. Now, yes, they suffered a little bit through the transfer portal. That's okay, because they got 15 spring practices and then a spring transfer portal to figure out what they want to be to develop that identity. So does he deserve this contract? Does Kalen DeBoer deserve a $10 million contract? Damn right he does. Damn right Kalen DeBoer deserves a $10 million contract. For 2 reasons. One, Greg Byrne and Alabama absolutely have to show that they're dedicated to this dude. They absolutely have to show that they're in this for a long term, that they have the confidence in Kalen DeBoer. Why? Because he's an outsider and recruits need to know that he's their guy, obviously. But it goes beyond that. What did Kalen DeBoer do beginning of January? Anybody? Raise your hands. Bueller. What did Kalen DeBoer do? Oh, that's right. He won a national semifinal and coached in a national championship game. Let me ask you, what have these dudes done on the screen? Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day. And we'll just ignore Mel Tucker there, because this is last year's list of $10 million men. Nick Saban, he's gone. Don't worry about him. Dabo Swinney, 10.8 and change. Kirby Smart, 10.7 and change. Ryan Day, 10.2 and change. What have all these dudes done? What have they done? They've coached in national championship games. And in Kirby and Dabo's case, won national championship games. What did Kalen DeBoer do? Remember, class? Remember what I just said? Oh, he coached in a national championship game. So the market's set, guys. The market is set for Kalen DeBoer. He coached in a national championship game. Coaches who have coached in national championship games get $10 million or more. Therefore, Kalen DeBoer deserves $10 million or more. It really is that simple. So yeah, Kalen deserves this money. And he's earned it because he's a winner and because of what he did in January. So don't fall into this trap of, well, he hadn't done it in the SEC. Well, whatever. Well, okay. No, he has not done it in the SEC. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. And the next point with this, let's go back and look at this last line. It will increase annually up to $11.75 million in the final year. It will increase annually up to $11.75 million in the final year. Ladies and gentlemen, that is an absolute steal, not for Kalen DeBoer, but for the University of Alabama. 8 years from now, what will the market dictate? If he lasts 8 years at Alabama, what does that mean? That means he's won national championships, plural. That means he's gone to the playoff, the 12 team or the 14, whatever they're going to do, probably every single season. And I guarantee you, coaches that do that will be getting paid much more than $11.75 million. So don't look at the here and now. Well, you can look at the here and now because he deserves the $10 million. 8 years from now, 7 years from now, 6 years from now, if Kalen DeBoer is still operating under this current contract, Alabama is getting an absolute steal. Now, will this be restructured? If that's the case, absolutely. This will get restructured. If Kalen DeBoer is there for 4, 5, 6 years, he ain't getting just 11.75. And in year 4, 5, and 6, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but what, 11, just over 11? It's going to get restructured. Greg Byrne's going to look at that piece of paper and be like, don't need it anymore. Don't need that anymore. So no, Kalen DeBoer is not being overpaid right now. $10 million is the market. Kalen DeBoer is not being overpaid with this $10 million contract. That's what coaches who have coached in the meaningful postseason, national semifinal, and national championship game are worth. Plus, 8 years from now, if it's $11.75 million that he's making, Alabama's getting an absolute steal. But like I said, that contract won't last that long. If he's there year 4, 5, and 6, that means he's successful, which means that contract will get torn up and he will be worth much more than 11.75 because the market, again, will dictate that. There are a couple other $10 million men now. Oh, look at Steve Sarkisian. Proving the point. He's made the playoff. Now, he did not coach in a national championship game, but he made the playoff. $10.3 million. Mel Tucker was making just over 10. He got fired. So 10.3 moving forward? Yeah. In. 100% in. And he'll probably get paid more if he wins the SEC next year or the year after. If Steve Sarkisian wins the SEC or goes to the SEC championship game, that means he makes the playoff. What will happen when he makes the playoff? That contract's going to go up to about 10.75 or 11. A, because Texas can pay it, and B, because that's what the market will dictate. A reminder, friends, go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. We'll talk about Florida State here in just a second. Florida State versus the world. It did seem like it was Florida State versus the world beginning in early December through, well, now, because they're trying to get out of the ACC. This is just one Florida State shirt that you can get over at Breaking T. Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. You can get this or pretty much any other college football shirt that you want. They also have some mugs, got some artwork, got a little bit of everything over at Breaking T. So go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. They have you covered. I'm sorry. I don't know why you're friends with me. I really don't. You probably aren't. I don't understand what Deion Sanders is doing here. I think he's wasting a golden opportunity. And this was, I guess, from last week, but people seem to pick it up yesterday and today. And this is a quote from Deion. I think it was when they started spring practice. My approach is totally different than many coaches. I'm a businessman as well. So I try to save our university money every darn chance I get. For me to go, let's say, to Florida and I'm visiting IMG Academy, you don't think those coaches are going to be a little upset if I don't come by the school down the street? You don't think it's going to be pandemonium or I'm going to get naysayed if I don't go another 45 minutes? Then if I go to that one, why didn't I come to that school? Now the coach is mad and he's not going to let the kid come because I chose this school over that school. Isn't that the point? You're Deion Sanders. You took over a downtrodden program. It's supposed to be pandemonium. That's the entire point. So to me, you're missing a golden opportunity. Golden, yes, pun very much intended for the gold and black of Colorado. There will be some coaches, there will be some players that are upset if you don't show up at their school. 100%. You know what happens when Nick Saban, when he was recruiting, didn't show up at a high school down the road? When Urban Meyer didn't show up at a high school down the road? When Hugh Freeze did it? Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley. You know what happens? Yeah, they get upset. Those guys get really upset that they didn't come to their school and show their player love. This is not a woe is me business. College football recruiting is not a woe is me business. It's a cutthroat business. So yeah, if Deion Sanders spurns one high school 45 minutes away, in this case, talking about IMG Academy, you know what that's going to do? Stoke a fire in that player, stoke a fire in that coach. To get Deion to go to their place, to get Deion to recognize those players, to get Deion to recognize, hey, this kid is a 3-star right now, but he's developing. There's no reason to make this a business about butthurt. And that's what it seems like that it's being suggested here, that some of these other coaches, some of these other players are going to whine and cry instead of working their tails off to get recruited by Deion Sanders. It's supposed to be pandemonium. Deion Sanders recruiting a school down the road, visiting a school down the road, is supposed to create pandemonium. And if a high school coach 45 minutes away, if a player 45 minutes away holds it against him that he didn't show up, that he didn't make that phone call, that he didn't make that in-house visit, work harder. Work harder. And if you whine and cry about it, if you're that player and you whine and cry about it, if you're that high school coach and you whine and cry about it, Deion's not going to want you anyway. No head coach would want to go visit that school or visit that player anyway. So it's a cutthroat business. And look, I think with this quote, I'm a businessman, so I try to save our university money every darn chance I get. Save your university money? You're in the Big 12, which is great. Granted, not one of the big two. They're still raking in money. Brett Yormark has done a great job leading that conference. Save your university money. You know what changes the revenue model at any school? Winning. So to me, this is just, it's a wasted opportunity. I don't understand it. I know Deion tries to be different in terms of how he markets that program, and that's fine. You have to be different marketing and selling Colorado. Why? Because it's not a traditional power. In fact, before he got there, it was kind of a traditional laughingstock. So I get it. You got to stand out. I'm 100% on board with Deion doing all of these things to stand out. Not this way. It should not be done this way. I don't like it. And look, I'm fully on board with Deion. I love the hire. I love that he's at Colorado. I'm old enough to remember when Colorado was a power in the 90s. I wish him the best. I really hope he gets the job done. I really do. But I just don't understand this, man. I don't get this one bit. CBS Sports came out with its top, the most important player for each of the top 25 teams. So We'll go, speaking of Michigan, to what Will said about Michigan. It's Donovan Edwards, obviously. Running back comes back, is now probably going to be the number one. Yeah, they could do a 1A, 1B type scenario, but Donovan Edwards is slated to be the workhorse. Do I agree or do I disagree? Well, I agree with Will because, yeah, you can sit here and talk about the quarterback situation, but a steady running game will help whoever wins that quarterback position. Now, let's be honest. Going into spring practice, going into fall camp, the quarterback is going to be at the top of everybody's mind because J.J. McCarthy is a legend. We know what he was able to do at Michigan in terms of the last couple of years. So, yeah, all eyes are going to be on that. And it's important. But this dude right here, Donovan Edwards, is that man because no matter who wins the job at quarterback, Alex Orji, Jaden Denegal, who's had a great, who has a lot of anticipation going into the spring, I should say, Jack Tuttle, who's had an up and down career all over the place, Davis Ward and Jaden Davis also in the mix. Combined between those guys, all of them, 36 career passes at Michigan. 36 career passes at Michigan. So you're not going to come in throwing darts all over the place. If you're Sherrone Moore, you are going to rely on that running game. And I think the question is, okay, can Donovan Edwards be the guy who is the true number one? Because Blake Corum has been the workhorse. And I think the answer is yes, because he showed it late in the 2022 season when Corum was out. Michigan needed to finish things off, and they did finish things off, made it to the college football playoff through really Donovan in addition. I would say those two guys were pretty much equal in terms of their importance to that Michigan team. So I absolutely love that he is considered the most important player on the Michigan Wolverines. Yeah, is it a little unorthodox? Sure, because I think, again, the natural inclination is to say, well, JJ is going to have to be the quarterback. It's the player at the most important position. Why wouldn't it be JJ McCarthy? And I'm not saying it's a lazy take. It's an easy take. And you can argue that it's the right take. I don't think it's the right take. I think CBS Sports nailed it here. So good for them, good for Will for getting things right. Speaking of getting things right, another one that I love, Phil Mafah from Clemson. Now, I think it's also easy to sit there and say, well, it's Cade Klubnik. Why wouldn't it be Cade Klubnik? He's the quarterback. Clemson's built on quarterbacks. It's the most important position. But Phil Mafah was that dude. He was really the number one back last year. Yeah, Will Shipley was solid, but Phil Mafah, yeah, he broke out in the bowl game. I think we'll all remember that bowl game. But he led the Tigers with 965 and 13. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a team that, yeah, it started out slow, but they hit their stride late. Why did they hit their stride late? Because they found an identity. What was that identity? Well, it was Phil Mafah more than Will Shipley, and nothing against Will Shipley. I think he's a fantastic player. And again, leave your comments, Clemson fans, Michigan fans, whoever, leave your comments if you can, if you want to. I'll try to get to them as quickly as I can. But Clemson found an identity. Is it a national championship identity? Probably not. They need to build off of it, but they know it. And knowing is half the battle. So if you have a pretty good grasp of what you are going into spring practice, yeah, you're going to add some pieces here and there in the transfer portal. And yes, Dabo, I do believe, will hit the transfer portal this spring, way more than he has in years past, because I think he understands now the roster is nowhere close to as deep as it needs to be. Yes, it was at running back, though, last year. And that's why I think you add Phil Mafah to the mix as a number one running back. You can supplement him with whoever. You can maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, if you're a Clemson fan, actually use Cade Klubnik as a running quarterback, maybe more than you have. It seems like they've been a little reluctant to do that. I get it that he's not, Deshaun Watson out there, but he's more than a willing runner. So why don't you use him to do that? So I think going into fall camp, they're going to know who they are no matter what happens in the transfer portal. So you're going to fine tune things. And that's the biggest thing now, especially in this day and age of player movement. If you know who you are, if you know what your identity is in early August, then you've got a really good shot of taking care of business early. And in this day and age, in a 12-team playoff, if you take care of business early, if you don't have one of those slip-ups, even if you aren't one of the top 12 teams at the end of the season, you might have played your way into one of those spots. Why? Because you didn't suffer that early season stumble. So to me, is Clemson a national championship caliber team? No. I had them number 3, though, in the college football playoff, because I do think they will be the 3rd best conference champion. Will they suffer a loss along the way? Probably. Will it be early? I don't think so, because they know their identity going into the season. And that's one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough, is that, yeah, it's a short season. In basketball right now, it is about who gets hot. In football, I think it's not going to be about who gets hot, who gets in. It's about who's hot early and can suffer those setbacks down the stretch, because it won't matter if they're cold. So I think it's going to be a little reversed. And I think for Clemson, I don't think they have the talent to be a national championship caliber team, but win the ACC, get the 3rd slot, maybe even the 4th slot, depending what happens in the Big 12, fine. Phil Maffa's a big reason why. We're going to get to what I don't like in Will Backus's predictions for the most important players on the top 25 teams in the country. But Breaking T, look at that. Look at the top left corner of those pictures. Aw, there's my daughter, Samantha. We made the email. We made the promotional email from Breaking T. You can get basketball shirts, obviously, as well with Marquette Basketball. But look at little Samantha there. That was a long time ago. And yes, if you don't notice, if you haven't noticed, look at what shirt I'm wearing. It's the same one. Go to breakingt.com/Braves and get these. But Breaking T does a great job with viral moments. Go to breakingt.com/Smothered and Covered if you want to get some football gear. And again, baseball right around the corner. You can see that little 755 shirt next to that cute little Disney shirt. Well, you know what? I'm wearing it right now because I love the guys at Breaking T. So go to breakingt.com/Smothered and Covered. They will hook you up with all of your gear heading into college football season or Major League Baseball season. All right. Let's get to some maybe not accurate picks in the CBSSports.com story. Savion Byrd from SMU. Now, 2 things on this. One, I love that SMU has that 19 next to its name, because I don't think that SMU will have a big challenge stepping into the ACC, because the ACC sucks. The ACC sucks. So if you're SMU, you're picking the perfect time to come in to that conference. You're picking the perfect time. And Rhett Lashley's a great coach. One of the best coaches, I think, in the country. Really underrated. We hope to have him on the show relatively soon. But hit the transfer portal hard. Brilliant offensive mind. And yes, Savion Byrd's a big deal, but this guy is a bigger deal, and that is Preston Stone. Yeah, he broke his leg. He missed the bowl game. But if he comes back healthy, to me, you talk about dark horse contenders for the Heisman Trophy, this dude's it. Because I look at that team. We talk about Cinderellas, right? Cinderella doesn't really make the 4-team playoff. Cinderella might not even, be considered one of the top 10 teams. But could SMU win the ACC in year 1? Not saying it's going to happen, because like I said before, Clemson, I think, would be the team. We're going to talk about another ACC team here in a second. But SMU, good enough to spring an upset, good enough to be the best team in the ACC for 60 minutes on any given day. Are they going to be as consistent? No. But they are good enough to spring upsets against everybody on their conference schedule. So pick the right upsets, and they're in. The guy who can do that, yeah, offensive line's important. I get that. And Will Backus makes a very good point for Savion Byrd. But Preston Stone's that dude, especially considering he's coming off injury. So I think, SMU, it gets so overlooked. And I was fully on board. I will tell you this, not from Will, but from a lot of other people within the Paramount Plus community. I got ripped to shreds because, I thought SMU was a perfect fit for the ACC and that they would move somewhere, and they did. I got ripped to shreds because I thought they'd make the AAC championship game and be ranked, and they were. And I'm right about this. SMU will contend for the ACC championship. Are they going to make the ACC championship game? I would say probably not. But if they get good offensive line play, and Will Backus says that they will, because Savion Byrd, he says, is the most important player, I think it's Preston Stone. Either way, that's a very good football team. And they are a dark horse to at least make the ACC championship game. So I love SMU. I think it's going to be a very, very good team this year. All right, last one before we get to the basketball/football story of March Madness. Florida State. And I'd like to say, if you have comments, please leave them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. Florida State. Will says Patrick Payton. Look, I get it. Defense is important. Edge rushing is important. You have to create chaos in the backfield. That's absolutely a big deal, especially after Jared Verse left. For Florida State, look, it's a big. We talked about it last week. That game against Georgia Tech in Ireland in week 0 is huge because all eyes are going to be on Florida State. Are they a contender or are they a pretender? Are they fake or are they legit? A lot of that has to do with how they replace stars. And certainly replacing Jared Verse is a big deal. This is a bigger deal. It's DJU Uiagalelei. I think DJU is the most important player for Florida State. And look, it's, again, pretty easy to sit there and say, oh, yeah, well, the quarterback, yeah, you have a top 15, top 10 team. Of course, he's going to be the most important player. Well, yeah, I mean, that is obvious. However, it's the right pick. It's Occam's razor, right? Sometimes the easiest pick is the right pick. Sometimes the easiest explanation is the right explanation. And look, I think for DJU, obviously, his career has not gone anywhere like we thought it would. I remember DJU committed to Clemson on Full Ride with Chris Childress and Rick Neuheisel on SiriusXM. And of course, I worked for SiriusXM. So little, not so subtle shout out to the employer. But the hype around him, especially after Deshaun and Trevor, was unfair. And then he goes up to Notre Dame. Trevor Lawrence is on the COVID list. And he sets records. Like that game was incredible. Now they lost, but it was incredible. And then all the hype just got built even more. And then we know what happened the next 2 years. But it was unfair to compare him to Trevor. It was unfair to compare him to Deshaun. And he goes to Oregon State, and I think they found, like, Jonathan Smith did a good job of figuring out exactly what he's good at and playing toward that. Now, he didn't have much help. I know, Oregon State was, in the mix for a New Year's Six bowl for a lot of the season. I don't think they really figured out how to use DJU all year long. They put Childs in every, third series. There was some sort of rule that Jonathan Smith had where you have to put Childs in every third series or the third series of every game or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. I still think that DJ has not been used properly. And I do think that Mike Norvell can use him properly. So, and even if I'm wrong, and Peyton is the most important player off the edge, I still think that just seeing what DJU's potential is would be enormous. And I do think that he will have his best season. I'm interested in Florida State. You guys know I'm very interested in Florida State. Florida State fans, y'all know very well how much hype I had for you, how confident I was that Florida State would make the playoff last year. They should have made the playoff last year. I will stand on that hill. I will die on that hill. But nevertheless, they performed exactly like I thought they would. Now, I said they'd be a playoff team. Yeah, the injuries sucked, but they would have been a playoff team had Jordan Travis not got hurt. And I think this year I'm not as bullish, but if you get a good year of DJU, could he be better than Jordan Travis? Like if you get the DJU, the potential that we saw in that Notre Dame game when he was a true freshman in the COVID year in a loss. But if we get that kind of guy, then Florida State's a national championship contender again. They might be anyway because of the ACC. But despite all the roster losses, I still think DJ's got it in him. I think he was uncomfortable at Clemson. He said that. I think the talent wasn't around him at Oregon State. That's obvious. But I think Norvell can use him properly, use him as that bruiser, as a runner, and then let him take the top off of defense. I think he's gotten better. in deep passes, I think he was maybe hindered by the lack of talent around him at Oregon State. He's got that cannon. So I think that it'll be fascinating to see what happens. But Florida State, I would disagree with Will. I think it's DJU. There's no doubt about it. That'll do it for this edition of the College Football Smothered and Covered Weekend Feast, the best of show from the week that was. Don't forget to give us a follow, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your college football content. We'll be back for another full week of College Football Smothered and Covered next week. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody.